She admitted it, right there, in front of her friends, that she was only marrying me for the money. The words hit me like a punch, the kind that knocks the air out of your chest. I don't know why I even went further. I dumped her right there. Cut her off without a second thought. Now, I'm 29, with an MBA and a comfortable position in my father's company. I know what you're thinking. Here comes the rich kid, with his silver spoon, right? But hear me out. I wasn't always here. Our family didn't start with wealth. In fact, we were deep in debt. I was young, so I didn't know all the details, but my dad took a massive risk. He used the one thing of value we had, our house, the only thing left from my grandfather, and secured a loan. That was the turning point. It wasn't smooth sailing at first. It was messy, risky, and downright scary. But looking back, I'm grateful for it. That struggle, those tough times, shaped me in ways I can't even fully express. I wasn't born into luxury. I wasn't raised in a mansion. And that's the gift my family gave me. I don't take this success for granted. It taught me the value of hard work. That's why I went after my MBA. To add real value to what my father had built. So, yes, I'm in his company. I get it, it could look like nepotism. But deep down, I know I'm there on merit. I've worked my way up. I've contributed, I've put in the effort. And now, we're doing well. Really well. And so am I, on a personal level. But despite all this, I remain cautious. I've learned to be financially sensible. I've seen what it's like to have nothing, so I'm not going to squander what I have now. That brings me to relationships. I've always been wary. How do you know someone truly cares for you, and not your bank account? It's tougher than you think when you have money. You can't help but wonder, are they really interested in me or just the lifestyle? I've been through a lot of dates, many, in fact. Most didn't go past the first one. A few made it to a third, but those were rare. I could count them on one hand. So, when I met Brianna, I didn't expect much. She was gorgeous. Radiant, even. The moment I saw her smile, I couldn't resist going up to her. I learned her name, Brianna, and that she was a nurse. Something about that made her even more attractive. I respected her profession. It spoke to me. So, I asked for her number, right there. And from that moment, it started. I'm always cautious when I start a relationship. I'm not here to just date, I want to see if I can picture them as my wife. I need to be sure. And so, when I got serious with Brianna, I made it a point to make sure money wasn't the reason she was with me. I know it's hard to avoid, but I wasn't going to fall into that trap. I didn't see any signs of gold digger behavior from Brianna. She was smart, funny, down to earth, everything I wanted. So, after 2 years of getting to know her, I asked her to marry me. She said yes. I was thrilled. I was ecstatic. She was the one. But there was a moment, a turning point that shifted everything. It was just after the proposal when the conversation about a prenup came up. I thought it was a reasonable discussion. Something we needed to talk about, given everything. But she didn't see it that way. She freaked out. And I mean, she really flipped. To her, it felt like I didn't believe in our relationship. Like I thought it wasn't going to last. And I get it. That's not what I meant. But life happens. You can't control everything. Even if I give 110%, she could wake up one day and decide she's done. The second issue? She thought it meant I didn't trust her. That I was accusing her of trying to take everything if things didn't work out. It was a tense night. We argued. Back and forth. An hour passed, and we were both upset. Finally, I gave in. I told her I'd drop the prenup talk. Yes, I know it was a mistake. But I loved her so much. I didn't want something like that to tear us apart. It was stupid. But I did it. We both slept angry that night, but eventually, things cooled down. We patched things up. And then, a few months later, things took a strange turn. Brianna invited me to a barbecue at one of her colleagues' houses. It seemed like a good opportunity. I didn't know many of her coworkers, and she talked about them a lot. So, I thought, why not? When I arrived, the atmosphere was warm. Everyone was friendly. I got along with most of the people there. We talked sports, joked about socks, the usual guy stuff. Brianna was inside, chatting with the women, which didn't bother me. I didn't mind. But then I needed to use the bathroom, so I slipped inside through the back door. This is where things get strange. The back door opened to a narrow hallway that led into the living room. You couldn't see anyone from where I stood. But as I turned the corner, I heard voices. Brianna's voice, clear as day, cutting through the others. I stopped dead in my tracks. At first, it was about how well I dressed. A compliment, I guess. But then the conversation shifted. It drifted from my wardrobe to how expensive it was. And then, like a punch in the stomach, my money was the focal point. They were laughing. Talking about how lucky Brianna was. How fortunate she was to have someone with money. And then, her voice. Her words. He has a lot of money and honestly, his money is. I didn't need to hear the rest. I knew where this was going. The best part of him, she said, was far from the emotional depth that comes with true connection. It was about his money. The laughter that followed only deepened the sting of her words. She even threw in a flippant remark. He asked for a prenup, but I said no. Of course, she needed to have the freedom to cash out if things hit a rocky patch, right? The sound of her laughter mingled with the words, each one louder than the last. But for me, it wasn't funny. It was unsettling. I couldn't help but smile awkwardly before excusing myself, stepping away from the house. By the time I left, something had shifted. I hadn't planned on needing to go to the bathroom, but somehow, I couldn't shake the strange discomfort that had settled in my stomach. We went back to our place, and though she noticed something was off, I couldn't bring myself to share my thoughts. Not yet. When she finally went to bed, I was left alone with my growing doubts. The events of that afternoon kept looping in my mind, a jagged pattern I couldn't quite break. This was a few days ago now, and yet I still wasn't sure what to do. Brianna, she's a wonderful person, a woman I love deeply. But I'm battling myself. Should I chalk this up to trivial gossip from her friends? Was she just getting carried away in a moment of misguided humor? Or was this something deeper? Something that would shake the foundation of everything we were planning together, including our wedding? Could I really go through with it now, knowing what I had heard? I didn't know anymore. My mind screamed for me to walk away. This was exactly what I had feared. Someone who valued the money more than the man. But only days ago, she seemed perfect. And how quickly everything had fallen apart. The woman I thought I knew now seemed distant. My heart said I should talk to her, understand her side of things. But my gut told me something was wrong, and I couldn't ignore it. How could I trust her when this had been said? I felt trapped between love and practicality, unsure which way to go. Then came the comments. I read them all. The ones that said I should have stood my ground on the prenup from the start. They weren't wrong. Maybe I should have ended things right then and there. Some of you were harsh about it, but I had thick skin, so it didn't bother me. Would I have done things differently? Maybe. But I did agree with one thing. I should have fought harder for the prenup. It wasn't just about me. It was about protecting my family's legacy. Now, I feel like I'm at a crossroads. Should I end it now, cut ties with someone whose interest in me might be more about my bank account than my heart? That would be the safest choice, surely. But there's a part of me that wonders if I can talk to her again, bring up the prenup, and see if it changes anything. Would that make her see me as more than just a cash cow, or is it too late for that? I've had a lot of advice come my way, some more sensible than others. But one thing's clear, I need to talk to Brianna again. A few days later, I sat her down. This time, I didn't hesitate. I told her we needed to revisit the prenup conversation. Her reaction was swift, fierce, and even worse than before. She claimed it was a sign I didn't trust her, that I wasn't committed to our future. I tried explaining that it wasn't about trust. It was about protecting what my father built. But she didn't hear it. She just kept raving about how unfair I was being. I asked her flat out, would she still marry me if I insisted on the prenup? The answer came too quickly. She said she'd reconsider our future together. That's when I realized I wasn't going to win her over. The fight was over. I let her stew in her confusion before pushing further. I reminded her of the conversation she had with her friends at the barbecue. The one where she'd so casually remarked that my money was the best part of me. She denied it at first, like she had no idea what I was talking about. But I reminded her of the details, the giggles, the way she'd talked about a prenuptial agreement like it was a joke. Suddenly, she wasn't so confident. Her hands trembled, her face flushed with panic. And when I saw her reaction, a strange thing happened. I laughed. Her face crumpled, and she broke into tears. But not a word of apology. Nothing. Her sobs filled the air, but they didn't soften the sting of her previous words. I had to say it then, the wedding was off. At that, she collapsed to the floor, muttering pleas between her sobs. Please, please, she whimpered, but there was no going back. I turned and walked away, retreating to our room and locking the door behind me. The next morning, she was waiting for me, her eyes red and puffy, her face showing the signs of an entire night without sleep. She came at me, touchy, too eager to explain herself. She tried to downplay everything, claiming it was all an attempt to fit in with her colleagues, that her words didn't matter. She swore money had never been a factor in why she loved me. But even though I knew she probably believed that at one point, I felt the shift. She said she'd signed the prenup, that it wouldn't be an issue for her. But none of it mattered anymore. I looked her in the eyes and gently took the engagement ring off her finger. I didn't want it in her hands. Not after everything. That's when the dam broke. She screamed, cursed me out, called me every insult in the book. She said I was ugly, that I had no charm. She tore into me with words that stung, and she even claimed to have slept with someone else, a stranger she met at a bar. I don't know if I believe that last part, but at that point, it didn't matter. She called me everything, every name, every insult she could think of, and then she threw things. She couldn't hurt me physically, but emotionally, it felt like she was trying to tear me apart. I couldn't take it anymore. I retreated to the safety of the bedroom, locked myself in. I don't know what's next, but I know one thing for sure, I'm done. A few hours passed in silence. The storm had died down, but when I finally stepped outside, what greeted me was pure chaos. She was gone, but the damage she'd done lingered in every corner. The house was a war zone, a savage reminder of how quickly things had unraveled. My blood was boiling. Every inch of the place screamed her rage. I felt a bitter satisfaction in knowing I'd made the right choice. I snapped picture after picture, capturing every broken item, every shattered moment. Then, I retrieved footage from one of the indoor cameras. Everything had been documented. No escaping it now. The destruction was too much to process in one go, so I left. The only refuge I could find was a hotel, far away from the disaster zone she had turned our home into. But even there, I couldn't rest. Instead, I decided to indulge in a bit of fun. I visited her Facebook and Instagram, looking for the posts where she had proudly announced our engagement. I crafted my message carefully, savoring every word. I hate to inform you that the wedding is off and I am no longer engaged to Brianna. She admitted to being with me only for my money, and when I confronted her about it, she lost her mind and destroyed my house. If you have any questions, ask her. I posted it, replying to every comment, feeding the flames of gossip. She hated looking bad, and it felt good to turn the tables. Then I made my own post, pictures of the wreckage, short clips of her temper tantrum. I tagged everyone, her family, her friends, even the hospital where she worked. That last one was for fun. Imagine the gossip swirling around her at work. The thought made me smile. Her parents tried calling, but I didn't answer. It hurt to cut ties with them, but it was inevitable. The final straw came when Brianna called me, over and over. The one time I picked up, her voice was a mix of desperation and venom. Through her sobs, she threatened me, said she would come and kill me for ruining her life. I knew it was just drama, nothing more. She wailed about how I humiliated her with those clips, how people now called her Bee of Tarth behind her back because of her aggressive outburst in the video. I couldn't help but laugh at that. Her world was crumbling, and I was standing right in the middle of it, watching it burn. She was crying, furious, pleading. But the thing that bothered me was that I had yet to hear her take any responsibility. She said she was just trying to fit into a Gossip Girl vibe, blamed her friends, blamed her colleagues. She insisted that my money was never the reason she fell for me, but I knew deep down that wasn't entirely true anymore. Money had become a bigger part of the equation than I ever realized. She told me she'd sign the prenup now, that it wouldn't be a problem. But the truth was, I didn't care. My decision had already been made. I took her hand, looked her in the eye, and slowly, deliberately, removed the engagement ring from her finger. The ring that had cost me so much. I wasn't about to let it end up in the hands of someone like her. Her response? More tears, followed by an eruption of anger. She threw everything she could find at me, insults, curses, accusations. She even claimed she'd slept with someone else because she felt like it. Whether it was true or not didn't matter, it was just noise now. All I could do was laugh. But when she started throwing things, I knew I had to retreat. I locked myself in the room, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't want to entertain her dangerous rants anymore. The night passed, and when I came out the next morning, she was waiting for me, looking like she hadn't slept a wink. She tried to be all touchy, but I shrugged her off. She went into damage control mode, explaining herself, saying she never meant to say those things. She blamed her friends again. But in the back of my mind, I knew it was too late. Too much had been said, too much had been done. When she offered to sign the prenup, I had nothing left to say. Instead, I held her hand, looked into her eyes, and slowly took the ring off her finger. Her reaction was instantaneous, tears, fury, every insult she could muster. I tried not to let it affect me, but when she started throwing things, I locked myself away. The damage was done. I called the wedding planner next. I told her to cancel everything. As I did it, a part of me was sad. It was a painful thing to admit, but I had to. The dream was over. Once that was done, I knew it was truly over between Brianna and me. But the most satisfying part? Taking her to court for the damage she caused. I had asked her nicely to pay for the destruction, but her response was nothing short of vulgar insults. Fine. If she wanted a fight, I was happy to deliver. She would pay lawyer fees, lost workdays, and hopefully a hefty sum to cover everything she destroyed. And trust me, it was a lot. The legal process was still pending, but I had the recordings, and I had spoken to my lawyer. There was no way out for her. A small part of me still felt hurt. After all, I had built my hopes on this relationship. But the sting of pain was lessened by the fact that I had found out who she really was before I invested more of myself. Better to face the hurt now than later, when it could have been far worse. Oh, and just a little update for those following the story, I was awarded nearly $10,000 for the damage she caused. The apartment was a mess, and I had to stay in a hotel for a while. Cleaning fees were no joke either. But as I checked the balance, I couldn't help but smile. I was taking money from her after everything had fallen apart. The irony wasn't lost on me. She should have signed the prenup. The way I saw it, the universe had given me a little compensation for the emotional mess she left behind. My heart might still be healing, but my wallet was certainly feeling a lot better. I had closure, and in some twisted way, it felt like justice. What do you think? Should I have handled the prenup differently? Let me know your thoughts. Thanks for reading, and stay tuned for more.